Welcome to AI Pulse. We're here to break down the day's biggest news in artificial intelligence. So let's just jump right in. Let's kick things off with just one number, 40%. Now, you might be thinking, 40% of what? Well, get this. That's the share of the entire world's DRM memory supply that just one single project is set to eat up. We're talking about OpenAI's Stargate. I mean, just let that sink in for a second. One project taking almost half of everything the world can produce. So, as you can imagine, a number like that is fueling an absolutely unprecedented race for the physical hardware, the actual stuff that makes all of this AI magic happen. Now, you might remember the chip shortages we had during the pandemic, right? Well, this is a whole different ballgame. That was about supply chains getting all tangled up. What's happening now is a fundamental structural shift. It's not a temporary glitch. It's being driven by AI's just bottomless appetite for high bandwidth memory, HBM. That's a super fast, specialized memory you absolutely need to train these giant models. And hey, don't think this is just some problem for big tech companies and their massive data centers. No, the ripple effects are hitting all of us. I'm talking DRAM and NAND prices shooting up by 200, even 400%. The cost to build a regular PC up 15 to 20%. And that cost, well, it gets passed right on down to you and me. You've got the big players basically writing blank checks, telling suppliers they'll buy every single chip they can produce. And that's just squeezing everyone else out. Even familiar consumer brands like Micron's Crucial are literally disappearing from the market. Okay, so you've got this insane supply crunch. What does the undisputed king of AI hardware, NVIDIA, do about it? Well, their answer isn't just to make a faster chip. No, they're thinking much, much bigger. They're rolling out an entire platform. And their whole strategy boils down to this idea of extreme co-design. It's pretty genius, actually. They're not just selling you a GPU anymore. They're selling you the whole shebang. The CPU, the GPU, all the switches and networking cards, everything. And it's all designed from the ground up to work together perfectly. The goal? Well, two things. First, lock you into their ecosystem, for sure. But second, to seriously slash the cost and time it takes to actually train and run these massive AI models. But of course, all this incredible hardware is just a really expensive paperweight without the software, right? Without the actual intelligence. So let's pivot and talk about the minds of the machines, because how they're evolving is just as wild. And what's fascinating is that we're seeing this real split, kind of like a fork in the road for how to build these AI minds. On one path, you've got Apple, laser-focused on practical everyday capabilities. And on the other path, you have a company like Anthropic, which is going way, way deeper, asking these huge philosophical questions about what they're even building. So let's start with the practical side. Your iPhone's assistant, Siri, it's about to get a major brain transplant. Seriously, Apple is plugging in Google's Gemini models. This means the new Siri, which should be rolling out in February, is going to be a lot smarter. It'll finally be able to understand what's actually on your screen, which gives it the context it's always been missing to have a real natural conversation with you. Okay, now switch gears completely. While Apple's focused on making Siri better at setting timers, Anthropic is on this, well, totally different journey. They just dropped a massive 10,000-word constitution for their AI, Claude. And just look at this quote here. They're literally asking if Claude could be a moral patient. They're not just writing code, they're wrestling with the moral status of the thing they built. And the whole document is filled with language like this. It talks about the AI's psychological security, its sense of self, its well-being. I mean, what does that even mean? It forces you to ask some really profound questions, right? Is this a super responsible way to think about building a powerful new intelligence, or is it just a clever marketing ploy that could make us all think there's a ghost in the machine when there isn't one? So, you have these incredibly powerful new minds, both practical and philosophical. How does that translate to the real world? Well, let's talk about where the code literally meets the pavement. And speaking of hitting the pavement, Tesla is not slowing down, not one bit. They've already got a public robotaxi service running in Austin, Texas, with no human safety driver, by the way. And now they're setting their sights on a huge global expansion. The target date for getting full self-driving approved in both Europe and China is February 2026. We're talking next month. That's a massive move. And this kind of aggressive rollout by Tesla, it's the perfect setup for our next topic. Because when AI expands this quickly into our daily lives, it's bound to run headfirst into regulators and, well, reality. Over in Europe, the main tool they're using to handle this collision is something called the Digital Services Act, or DSA. You can think of it as a landmark set of rules designed to make tech companies responsible for the content and services on their platforms. Basically, it's all about creating a safer online world. And this is where things get really interesting, because we're seeing the DSA in action. This isn't just theory anymore. The EU Commission is now using it to go after a specific AI chatbot, Elon Musk's Grok. And they're not being subtle about it. Their stated goal is to get it pulled from the entire EU market. This is a huge shift from regulating platforms to regulating individual AI models. But let's be honest, for a lot of people, the biggest real-world concern isn't some high-level regulatory fight in Brussels. It's much closer to home. It's about their job. It's that huge, looming question, is AI a threat to my livelihood? Well, a new project has just launched to try and get some real answers. It's a website called Replaced By, and its mission is simple but powerful. It's not about hating on AI, it's about creating a place for real people to share their stories of being replaced by AI. It's an attempt to document the human side of this whole transition, and the entire project is open source. Okay, so we've got a massive hardware shortage, we've got these deep philosophical debates, and we have these very real collisions with society and regulators. It all leads to one big, crucial question. So, what's next? Where do we go from here? And you know what's wild? It seems like even the people at the very top are asking that exact same question. The CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, is actually holding a live-streamed town hall, and he's not just making announcements. He's asking developers, the people who actually build things with his tools, for their direct feedback on what this new generation of tools should even be. And the concerns that are flooding in from developers, they really tell a story. You can see the anxiety in the community. People are asking about stability. Like, how can you build a real business on a platform when the core models might just disappear tomorrow? They're worried about reliability, especially with these new autonomous AI agents. And of course, there's the big one, cost. With the price of compute going through the roof, how is any of this sustainable? So here's the bottom line. From the actual silicon being made in factories, to the code running in the cloud, to the very real impact on all of our lives, the entire world of AI is just in this state of incredibly fast, chaotic, and honestly fascinating change. The industry itself is grappling with these massive questions. The only real question left is, are you ready for the answers?